Welcome to 5 Good Minutes. You're listening to today's inspirational message on the book of Mark with Kurt Bjorklund.
Mark 4 moves to two stories here, parables, again, things that could seem secretive to people who don't understand. It's called the parable of the seed growing and the parable of the mustard seed. The parable of the seed growing is this: the kingdom of God is as if a man should scatter seed on the ground. He sleeps and rises at night and day, and the seed sprouts and grows, and he knows not how. The earth produces by itself first the blade, and then the ear, and then the full grain in the ear. But when the grain is ripe at once, he puts it in the sickle because the harvest has come. Now the seed imagery, and then the following mustard seed parable are stories about the kingdom of God, saying that the kingdom of God moves forward invisibly, almost imperceptibly, but it is ultimately inevitable. And this is such incredibly good news, because what this means is there are times when you will say, I don't know how this kingdom, how God is at work, and you will question, is God working? You'll question it in yourself, you'll question it in your church, you'll question it in the world on a whole. But if you see and understand what this parable is teaching, you will be able to say, God's kingdom is moving forward, and it is inevitable, even if it feels invisible, even if it feels irrelevant today. So let me ask you, when you get disheartened about what God's doing in you, when you get disheartened about maybe the work of God in your small group, in your church, in a ministry you're part of, is your tendency to say, since I don't see it, I can't believe it? Or is it to say, I will continue in faithful steps forward? That's the idea here of the person who's part of the seed, that you tend to it, you do it. And even though you can't see it every day, you trust that God will do something. I heard somebody once say this about church. They said, and this was directed at pastors, but they said, if you as a pastor evaluate your church in a 1-year window, you'll almost always be discouraged. You'll say, we haven't come very far. Not much has happened. We haven't, reached people, all this kind of thing. But if you look at a 5-year window, you'll often be amazed at what God has done. And I know that's been true for me. If I look back at any 1-year window, I'm often disheartened. But if I look back at 5, I'll often say it's amazing to see what God has done and how God has transformed lives and the development. And that is the principle of the mustard seed. It is the principle of God's invisible yet inevitable work. And so today, as you read through Mark 4 and consider the teaching here of Jesus, can I just ask you, where are you disheartened? And maybe, just maybe, it's a place to say, I need to believe that the kingdom of God is like a mustard seed. It's already begun, and I don't know where it will end, but I know that God is at work and his hand has not been thwarted. And in that, you can find maybe some comfort today for wherever God has you and what God has called you to. And rather than discouragement, say, I'll choose faith. And this is even that idea of faith like a mustard seed, where you hear that sometimes, to say this is the smallest of seeds and yet it grows into this mighty plant.
Thanks for joining us here today. There's a lot of great content to explore on Orchard Hill Plus and on the Orchard Hill main feed from the weekend. Have a great day.